I was like hit by a lightning. Like, oh my goodness, this is what I wanted to do. So I didn't care if I get the job or not. I just, nowadays you can, a lot of things can be translated, but, if you speak the language, your horizon, your world opens up tremendously. The major reason is my child's education. Where do I want to raise her? And Hawaii is by far the best. I traveled all over the place.
Takehiro Hira-san, welcome to Academia Language School.
Thank you.
My name is Larry Rhodes and I'm the Director of Language Programs here. And first of all, I just want to tell you how much we appreciate your agreeing to become Academia Language School's brand ambassador. We appreciate you. Thank you. Your appearance in Shogun has made global news as it's won a record-breaking 18 Emmy Awards in various categories. And recently it won the Golden Globe Award for Best Picture. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Your achievements are surely a great source of inspiration for people in non-English speaking countries who are about to start learning English and challenge the world. You're truly a successful English learner, having built an international career. Now, you're living in Hawaii with your wife and child while continuing your career as an international actor. Today, I'd like to interview you about three main topics. One is your journey to an international career. Two, your life in Hawaii. And three, how learning English has supported you. So, first, I understand you were in Japan until middle school.
Yes.
And then you transferred to a high school in the United States. So my first question is, what kind of kid were you back then? Did you always think of becoming a Hollywood actor?
I guess I was shy, introvert type of a kid.
That doesn't sound like someone who wants to be an actor.
I think I still am, in a certain extent. But, and I didn't think about becoming an actor, let alone Hollywood. So,
Right.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how did you choose a high school?
The high school in America.
Yeah.
I went to high school in Rhode Island. How I chose it, actually, there was a magazine back then, 30 some years ago, I guess. There's a magazine called Ishido Kazunari. It was like a study abroad journal in which they list all the schools, all the, I guess, private schools in America. And they were stratified by categories like the size of student body, acceptance rate to universities, and so on and so forth. And one of them was a number of Japanese students at school. And I went through all the schools and found the one with zero, like zero Japanese students.
Oh gosh, and that's the one you chose?
That's the one I chose. But when I got there were two others who thought the same thing.
Okay.
So I was like, what are you doing here?
All
I'm
right.
supposed to be the one.
Now, I'm assuming you did that because you were interested in improving English and you didn't want to be around too many Japanese kids, is that right?
Exactly.
All right, you had these two friends. Did you hang around with them a lot?
Well, first one, the one, a guy and a girl. And a guy thought exactly the same thing as myself. And the other person was an exchange student. So she was just going to be there for only 1 year. And I went there as a sophomore. So I was going to spend 3 years there. And the other guy was also a sophomore. So he was going to spend 3 years. But this girl didn't have too much time. She only had 1 year to study. So first day, she said to me, "Don't ever speak to me in Japanese." I was like, okay, that's a great way to meet.
No, that's
someone.
cool. Yeah, I like that.
But yeah, so greedy,
All right, well, you had the full 3 years, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, when you first arrived, how did you overcome cultural and language barriers?
I tried, but obviously I didn't speak much English and didn't know how to really communicate. I mean, I went to my Japanese school was it started with elementary school and then moved on to junior high, and with all the same students, we just sort of moved up everyone. So we didn't have to make new friends along the way. So I never really learned how to make new friends outside of the circle of existing friends. So it was kind of hard, but what helped me was I played soccer, football, really seriously when I was in Japan. So that was a gateway for me to the new horizon. I mean, helped me get involved in many activities and in the soccer team and make friends, and so it was a great way to get
you
involved.
certainly learn English through
through
the activity, right? Okay. Well, afterward, you went to Brown University, which is a famous Ivy League school.
It was all pure luck.
Really?
I was really lucky.
Explain.
Well, I was in a dorm,
Right.
and there weren't many students in the dorm. And this small school, I went to the high school, and the principal lived on the campus, and he was an old man, and he had this habit of taking his dog for a walk in the middle of the night, like 1 or 2 in the morning. And he saw one room with the lights on every day, and he must have thought that, oh my goodness, that student is always up 1 or 2 in the morning studying. Who could that be? And then one morning, he came up to the dormitory and knocked on my door, and I opened it. It was like, he used to call me Takehiro. Taki, what are you doing? Like, it's 2 in the morning. Go to sleep. I was like, well, I was doing, well, I don't know. I was just reading a magazine, doing something. But
not serious stuff.
Yeah, but I said, I was doing my homework. I was like, oh my goodness, you're such a good student. And so he ended up writing me a recommendation letter. And principal doesn't really do that for a student.
Right.
Usually your English teacher or whatever teacher, But the school principal wrote really good recommendation letter. So I think that's why I got into it.
Okay. Well, that's great. Now, you studied mathematics, right? That was your degree?
Yeah, I don't remember much, but yeah.
Okay. Well, now after that, though, you went to Columbia University, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what led you there?
Well, around, for some reason, I thought I was going to go to a medical school after Brown, but I didn't have a calling, or I didn't have, to be honest with you, grades for it. So I didn't know what to do with myself. I took all the science classes, and I wasn't thinking about going to business, so I didn't know what to do with myself, to be honest with you. So I guess out of desperation, I applied for a graduate school, and luckily I got in, but I only went there for a semester.
Okay.
Yeah, and found something to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you experienced education, though, a considerable amount, both in Japan and in America. How would you describe the differences in education in both countries?
Well, in America, you have to voice your opinion. in the class, outside the class, class participation is very important, and you can't just sit there and then be lectured as if you would in Japan. Here you have to take more proactive role in education. And I think that's not only in education, but in your work environment as well. I mean, like as an actor, people always ask me, directors always ask me, is this what you want to do? But sometimes they don't. But you have to voice what you think, and you can't just be polite and sit there and expecting someone to ask you for it.
Right. Well, I guess that would also increase your English skill, just the fact that you've got to participate, right?
Exactly, yeah.
I'm interested in your parents' role. What was especially helpful or important for your parents when they supported your study abroad?
Well, they didn't do much, to be honest with you. I guess if you leave your house door or if you leave the country, you're the only one who can trust, and everything around you, and they live in small chores here and there, small things, you have to do it, you have to take responsibility. So, I mean, that's a part of learning, I guess. If you study abroad, it's not only the language, it's not only the culture, but just grow up as a independent, as a human being. So I guess my parents were there for emotional support, but I did it,
right,
on my own. Yeah.
And their role was just really to trust you, yeah, because you were fairly young.
I guess so, yeah.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand that you worked in a company though before you became an actor. So I thought I'd ask you, can you share us a story of how you transitioned from that work into the world of acting in Japan?
Yes, I think I was 26. I was working for internet startup then, but before that, I worked at a finance company, financial company. Then I was happy, I guess. The work was interesting, but I was always thinking that this isn't what I'm going to do in 10 years, or this isn't going to be my career. This is only a step stone to something else. So I was happy, but really sort of burning from the both ends.
Yeah.
So I was really exhausted, and I finally got to ask myself a hard question: what do I really want to do? And I thought back then that it was the last opportunity for me to really pursue something I wanted to do. So without a question, I guess the acting just came up to my mind. It's like, if I don't try now, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. So yeah, that's
Well, your mother and father were famous actors, though, yeah?
Right.
I'm assuming they had some influence, or looking at their careers, that must have had some influence on you. Most people would never think, oh, I'm just going to become an actor.
Right. But yes, no, in a way that, I guess I had more opportunities, how should I say? It's it was more accessible. I mean, for me than any other, normal person with the parents that are not actors. But because of that, I tried to stay away from that profession
Oh yeah.
as much as possible since I was a kid. And my mother especially hated the idea that I was becoming an actor.
I read that she wanted you to become a doctor, right?
Yeah. There's no D. So, yeah. But after all, it's your life.
Sure.
It's I've always made, choice important choices on my own. So, parents' opinion is one thing, but you have to really ask yourself what you really want to do.
Okay, well, I saw a picture of you and your mother at an award ceremony, and I think she looked very proud of you, so I think you chose a good path. All right, well, you've been an actor in Japan for about 20 years, apparently, I think, looking at your record, appearing in many works, including in NHK's historical dramas. After attending high school and university in the United States, did you have many opportunities to work in English? And did your education in the U.S. help with your acting career in Japan?
In Japan? Not directly. I don't think I worked, or I don't think I used English directly in my work in Japan. But I was always watching movies in English, and I read books about acting or actors' memoirs and stuff like that in English. And I'm sure that really helped my, I guess, acting, a style of acting.
Mm-hmm.
And so indirectly, I think it helped tremendously. Yeah.
Okay. Can you share the moment when you decided to build an international career after leaving Japan?
I don't think I decided.
Oh, okay.
It just kind of, I was really lucky. But when my first film was international film, was in 2017. It's called The Lost Girls and Unloved Hotels. But when I auditioned for that film, I was like hit by a lightning. Like, oh my goodness, this is what I wanted to do. So I didn't care if I get the job or not. I just, I had this wonderful experience with another actress, and my eyes were opened. So I remember that day I went home and I was talking to my wife and said, I found something I wanted to do, and this is what I want to do. Can I quit my agency in Japan and try 100% in America? I said, okay. And so, so we came.
Okay, well, I guess anticipating the next question I had here, when you switched from a Japanese agency to an American one and began building your international career, how did you feel? Were you afraid to start your career in an English-speaking country?
I still am. But it's a challenge. And it's, I guess, in a way risky. I have family here, and what if I don't get, a job here? If I,
Well, you're doing pretty well right now.
But you never know. I mean, here, it's pretty much all based on auditions. So, success of a show doesn't promise a future, stability. So I'm always on my toes. But I mean, it's for me, it's a good thing. In Japan, it was getting sort of like routine work. the kind of roles that I get is similar to the one before and the one before, but here I have to prepare myself. I have to brush up my English constantly, and then maybe I have to learn another accent. There's so many things, but it's a challenge. But I enjoy it.
Do you recognize that I have a Southern accent?
You do?
I do. You went to school in Rhode Island, right?
Yeah.
Yep. A lot of accents out there. Okay. When working with international filming teams, is there anything in particular that you have to be mindful of?
I think try to be professional. I mean, like in the broad sense. Courteous to everyone. But yeah, that's the same in Japan. When I was working in Japan. But I guess that's something like being a Japanese can take advantage of. Like, we are, mindful of people around us. So I do that. It's the same thing here in America. And I don't know, try to be prepared, learn lines.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah. I heard that soon after you started expanding internationally, you faced challenges like COVID pandemic and then the actors union strikes. How did you overcome those adversities?
Well, I was really lucky. Well, COVID, we moved right before COVID, and 2 weeks after we moved, it got shut down. Everything got shut down. And I didn't work pretty much for a year, and that really was hard. And I wasn't gonna last another month, to be honest with you. But luckily, something came along, and it was an audition. It was an offer for a TV series that was shot in Rome. And that really helped rescue us. And then from then on, the Shogun came along, things started rolling, and I haven't stopped working since then, actually. So I was really lucky. Even the strike, I got an offer from a small independent films that were allowed to work during the strike because they had nothing to do with the big studios. So I was really lucky. Yeah.
Okay. The success of Shogun is remarkable. What does this work mean for your international career?
It definitely is a plus, but I don't think this will guarantee any future success or future stability. I mean, actors, it's always one job at a time, so I mean, it's always a plus, and it boosts my confidence, but move on.
All right. Well, I hope you don't move on quickly because I'm really enjoying Shogun.
Well, season 2 is coming.
Okay. All right. As you build your career internationally, how do you feel about your identity as a Japanese person?
Sorry?
As you build your career internationally, how do you feel about your identity as a Japanese person?
I guess I'm more aware of the representation in the media, and I take part of it. Some I never really thought about until recently, until the success of the Shogun, and people come up to me and they admire someone who look like me and an Asian person, but I guess I do feel that responsibility somewhat, working. And also maybe young actors who are in Japan wanted to come abroad, and like for example, something what Hiroyuki Sanada did for us. He worked 20 years only in America. He never went back to Japan and worked. So he stayed in Hollywood and paved the way for younger actors like me myself. So I feel somewhat responsible for carrying the torch.
What differences do you feel between Hollywood and Japan's entertainment industry in terms of culture and approach to work?
Well, on this topic, I can talk about 2 hours.
Okay, go ahead.
But what is it? I think in the US, of course, I don't want to generalize, there are some exceptions, but I feel like people treat other people better in the US. People respect, or maybe sometimes they are protected by laws, or for example, like HR. If there is a problem, between people, with staff, actors, you can bring it to HR, and they will judge it fairly. And by that, you can. Of course, there are a lot of problems coming up, from the past in Hollywood, and it's in the process of cleansing or cleaning up. But I feel like, based on my experience, people respect each other's profession, and I guess, and in Japan, I'm not saying that it's not happening in Japan, but the line between people is clear in the US, and so we don't step across too much,
right?
Invade,
right?
Yeah. So in a good way, yeah.
Okay, good. All right. This what I really curious your response when performing in both Japanese and English. Do you notice any difference in the way you express yourself?
Well, obviously, Japanese is my first language, and I guess for me, acting in English, it's becoming almost like a second nature, but I have to do a lot more work, and sometimes I notice, in Japanese, you're speaking and you have emotional or mental capacity to listen to yourself while you're acting. But in English, sometimes you're so concentrated on delivering your lines that you don't really hear yourself. Which is really not good.
Well, no, but it makes sense.
So, in Japanese I can catch myself, but in English, strangely, I don't sometimes, and so I have to be aware of that pronunciation and grammatical small mistakes here and there. But I mean, if you're working on TV or a film, you can do multiple takes. So, but there are like lots of different things that I have to look out for when I do English.
Well, you don't, for example, though, feel any kind of personality change, do you, when you're speaking one language or the other?
I guess more expressive in English, and this is a little bit technical. It might not answer your question, but I guess we actors pay attention to resonance. Like not so much in TV, but like in the theater. But in Japanese, resonance is here. Like this is like I speak like this on the chest. But the Americans speak like in here, and so it catches the microphone catches so much better if your resonance is up here. But if your resonance is like here in Japanese, we'll speak like this, and which I tend to do a lot. I'm sure you can notice. It doesn't really pick up much, so I have to be careful, like to bring the resonance here when I speak English. But like if you speak in an emotional dialogue, or if you have an emotional dialogue, sometimes like it's your like a habit, like to it's my habit to do like this, go inside and speak only here, and then it becomes like inaudible, and I have to
do another
take, or I do the studio recording afterwards. So there are lots of things that are different.
Okay, well, let's go on. Can you share some experience or stories about auditions and filming in international production? So you were mentioning that auditions are important here.
Yeah.
Do you have any interesting experiences from those auditions?
Well, now auditions are done via the iPhone. I mean, for the video audition.
Right.
So I never had to go to casting director's office to do it. But so I can be in my bedroom doing like 200 takes and pick the best one. Yeah. So.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. Well, it's great, but there's no end to it. You know what I mean?
I guess if you've got 200 of them, you're going to have a hard time choosing.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Many people feel anxious about not being able to speak English. How did you overcome your own anxiety about speaking English?
How did I overcome?
Because you mentioned soccer was kind of a gateway.
Yeah, soccer was a gateway. And I guess, having something some interest or like a hobby, or like for me it was a soccer, but something to talk about. It could be a game. I went to university with this kid from Hong Kong, and he was born. Well, I guess in Hong Kong he had some English education, but he was a Brown, and he was going to University of Kyoto to study abroad, but he studied Japanese when he was a kid. But he was playing games, and he was playing like a Dragon Quest, and he loved it so much that he couldn't wait for a Chinese version or English versions to come out. So he wanted to play as soon as possible. So like he learned Japanese so that he could play, when it comes out.
Wow.
So I mean, now he's studying at Kyoto University. I don't know what he's doing now, but some interest, will push you through.
Right.
Yeah.
And it sounds like an activity.
Yeah.
Is especially good because you have to interact with
right.
people.
Yeah, exactly.
What learning methods helped you the most become fluent in English? So like you're studying yourself, what did you do?
When I was studying?
Yeah. What methods did you use?
Well, I went, back then, there was no internet, like a pre-internet era. So what I had was dictionary. So I made index cards for all the vocabulary and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I went over and like, I wake up and I go over like hundreds of them, and the ones I know, and ones that I'm not so sure about, and so
Different categories,
different categories. Yeah.
Okay, great. So flashcards, that's a
Flashcards,
great way to go, yeah. Are you still making efforts to improve your English? And what are you doing? How do you continue to work?
I do. I do code readings, like a book or a play, and I record myself. And then now I think I'm good enough to catch myself. That word didn't sound right, or But I had to record myself. And then now I do shadowing, for like recently I've been doing a lot of that, and on YouTube there are actors reading a play or reading a book, and I just listen to it and I try to imitate it, record it, and listen to it, correct myself, try it again, or I do my rendition of it. Like if I was to read for a job, how would I read it? And that kind of thing. It's a good practice.
Well, yeah. What's interesting to me about hearing that is obviously that would be good for an actor.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be an actor. You could be anybody learning in that same technique at work. That's great. Well, moving on to another area altogether. Why did you choose Hawaii as your place of residence?
I guess when I was a kid, my parents used to take me here, and I was familiar with the island. But the major reason is my child's education. Where do I want to raise her? And Hawaii is by far the best, I think. I traveled all over the place, but Hawaii is by far the best place to raise a kid, I think. So,
it's really a wholesome place.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, how do you feel about raising your child here? If you can expand upon that just a little bit.
Hawaii, it's got the good mixture of racial mixture. Demographically, Asian populations is so big enough to feel at home, but it's got the convenience of America. Well, I don't know.
No. I think you hit on a good point.
Right? And then we get the both mixture of East meets West. So I want my daughter to have some Japanese exposure, culturally and linguistically. So it's a great place, and we are surrounded by all the nature, and especially in the younger age, you get to go on the beach or walk on the grass, and
it's different from Tokyo, yeah.
It's very different. Yeah.
All right. Now that you've lived here, have you discovered any new attractions? So, of course, everybody comes here and does some of the same things in the beginning, but after having been here for a while, what's something a little off the beaten track maybe that you could share?
Camping, for one. Yeah. That's something I wasn't able to do as a tourist, because you always stay in the hotel and then you don't have the gear.
But that's interesting because you must have, I'm assuming then you started your first experiences here as an adult. It's not something you grew up doing in Japan then, right?
Yeah, correct, yeah, exactly.
It's kind of interesting to start. Yeah. You're the head of the family, you've got to go and pitch the tent or whatever you're doing.
Yeah. But it's actually easy and it's not that hard. Yeah, and then campsites are everywhere, and you can get your gear. It's pretty, reasonably, and so.
Okay, good. So you recommend that, yeah?
I do, yeah.
Have you had any memorable experiences while living here with your family in Hawaii? Just something, a family-oriented thing in particular that stands out?
Well, personally, like my daughter learns hula, and I don't want to be we call it oyabaka in Japanese, but I think she's good.
Yeah. That's okay. Go ahead.
She had this for the Christmas. She had a show with her class, and actually all their kids too, and it's just like for her to incorporate the local culture and do it like 100% believe in the philosophy and all that. It's just like it was really moving. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what do you think about Hawaii as an option for people who want to learn English?
Well, I think it's a great option. It's almost a privilege, and to be able to live here, to come here and stay here for a long time, and learn English, and Hawaii is a pretty safe place. And safety. If I was a parent, safety is a big issue if I was to send kids away. And, America, mainland America, it's not the same place that I went to like 30, 40 years ago. So, but I would feel really safe sending kids here. And, not everybody is aloha, but most of them are. And so,
and you get to speak English to a lot of people who are also not native speakers of English.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think is most important to achieve your dreams?
Never give up.
Never give up. Okay. All right. As a globally recognized actor, what is the next challenge you want to take on?
What's the next challenge? Well, as I said, every job is I tackle at work at a time, and I treat it as my last job. Okay. That's what I actually feel like. Especially in America, like, oh, maybe I will never work again after this. Because there's no promise.
Right. You got to stay on your toes.
Yeah, and it's a hard profession. So I treat it as my last work every time. But it's a good kick in the butt.
No, it sounds like a good philosophy for anyone actually. Yeah. What does English, the language itself, what does it mean for you?
It opened a lot of doors for me, obviously. But even before coming to the U.S., coming to live in Hawaii, when I was working in Japan, although I never used directly, as I said, used English in my work, but I was always listening to news or like watching YouTube or podcasts or something like, but expose myself to the world and be aware of what's going on around the world. And that was just so important. Nowadays a lot of things can be translated, but if you speak the language, your horizon, your world opens up tremendously. And I'm so glad I went.
Well, I'm lucky that I'm a native speaker of English, obviously. Every time I travel around the world, I'm humbled by meeting people who speak English and it's not their first language.
Yeah.
So it's a lucky thing
Yeah.
to have something that's, international coinage.
Right.
Okay, well, the last question. What message would you like to share with future successful English learners who aspire to succeed internationally?
Never give up.
Okay, all right. No, that sounds like a good one.
Yeah.
All right, well, we thank you so much for coming
Thank you so
today.
much for having me.